Okay, we're going to go ahead and take a look at trigonometry dealing with right triangles, meaning like Sohcahtoa, where if you're given this angle right here, your opposite side is over here. Adjacent would be right down here because adjacent means next to you, and your hypotenuse is here. Your hypotenuse is always opposite the right angle. Sohcahtoa deals with the acute angles of a right triangle. You cannot use Sohcahtoa with your right 90-degree angle or the right angle. If your angle was up here, your opposite would be on the other side, which is on the bottom. Your adjacent would be right here, which is next to your angle, and your hypotenuse would still be opposite your 90 degrees. Sohcahtoa means sine is equal to opposite over hypotenuse. So sine is your opposite side over the hypotenuse. Cosine is adjacent over hypotenuse, and tangent is opposite over adjacent. Now, we also have reciprocal functions of sine. The reciprocal function of sine is cosecant. The reciprocal function of cosine is secant. And the reciprocal sign of tangent is cotangent. So if it's tangent, it's going to have cotangent. Tangent and cotangent go together. They both have tangent in their names. Now, when you're looking at sine and cosine, you know sine and cosine are kind of your normal functions. Their reciprocals have the other letter in the beginning. So cosine starts with a C, so its reciprocal begins with the S. Sine begins with an S, so its reciprocal begins with the C. So we're going to go ahead and use Sohcahtoa right here to be able to work this out. We're going to go to our 30-degree angle. We're going to take our opposite, which is x, over our hypotenuse for the sine of 30. So it'd be x over 2x. Well, the x's drop and we get 1/2. Then we could do the cosine of 30, which would be our adjacent x root 3 over our hypotenuse, which is 2x, and the x's drop. Our tangent would be our opposite of x over our adjacent of x root 3. So it would be 1 over root 3, but we don't want to leave that root in the bottom and rationalize it. So we get this. And if you don't remember, these purple triangles at the top are going back to the special right triangles from geometry. When you're looking at 45, if we look at this as our 45 here, our opposite for sine is x over our hypotenuse, which is root 2. So it would be x over x root 2. The root x's for drops would be 1 over root 2, but then you got to get the root out of the bottom. You get root 2 over 2. When you do the cosine of 45, that would be this x over your hypotenuse of x root 2. So it'd be x over x root 2, the x's would drop, and you'd be 1 over root 2, but you get that root out of the bottom. Then we do our tangent, which is our opposite of x over our adjacent of x, would be x over x, so we get 1. Now we need to go back and look at 60 degrees. 60 degrees, sine of 60 degrees is our opposite of x root 3 over our hypotenuse of 2x. The x's drop, and you're left with root 3 over 2. Cosine of 60. Cosine would be adjacent of x over your hypotenuse of 2x, so it would be x over 2x, or 1 over 2. Then we'll look at the tangent of 60. So we go opposite of x root 3 over our adjacent of x. The x's drop, and you're left with just your root 3. Now you need to have these memorized, but in addition to having these memorized, you need to go ahead and also memorize the sine, cosine, and tangent of 0 degrees and of 90 degrees, in addition to the ones that we just did right here in the middle. And you will be having some unit circle quizzes over these to see if you have them memorized or not, and they will likely start tomorrow. So we're going to use Sohcahtoa to be able to work this out. We want to find the 6 trigonometric functions of angle G. So write down the sine of G, cosine of G, tangent of G, and the 3 reciprocal functions. You need to make sure you have your trig function followed by the angle. Now, if we go to our cosine or our Sohcahtoa and go to our angle G, Our opposite's 24. Our hypotenuse is opposite the right angle, so that's 40. So it'd be 24 over 40, but in this case, that fraction reduces down to 3/5. Then we need to do our cosine. Cosine would be adjacent to g, which is our 32 over your hypotenuse. So it'd be 32 over 40, which also reduces down. Then we can do our tangent, which is opposite of g of the 24 over the adjacent, which is the 32. And that reduces down. And then we need to have the three reciprocal functions. Cotangent's the reciprocal of tangent, so I got to flip that one upside down. Secant's the reciprocal of your cosine, so I got to flip my 4/5 upside down. And my cosecant's the reciprocal of sine, so I got to flip that one upside down. We now want to do pretty much the same thing, but for angle F on this new triangle. So write down your 6 trig functions, put angle F after each one, put equals after each one, and now we'll go to F and we'll just use Sohcahtoa. Our opposite side of F is the 15, our hypotenuse is the 25, next year F is your 20, so that's adjacent. So if we're looking at our sine, that's opposite of 15 over your hypotenuse of 25, and so it reduces down to 3/5. Cosine of F, we'll go to F, we'll do adjacent to F, which is 20, over our hypotenuse, which is 25. That reduces down. We'll do our tangent of F, our opposite of 15 over our adjacent of 20, and then we'll reduce that down. Now we just have to do our three reciprocal functions. We have cotangent, that's reciprocal of tangent, so we're going to take our tangent and flip it upside down. We have our secant, that's reciprocal of cosine, so we're going to take that and flip it upside down. We have our cosecant, which is the reciprocal of sine, so we're going to take our 3/5 and flip it upside down. So we're now going to take a look at this triangle. We want to try to find x. We're given an angle and we're given our hypotenuse. So we're dealing with our hypotenuse, and now we have to decide if we're going to deal with sine or cosine, because they both deal with the hypotenuse. When we look at our 60, our x is on the other side, so that's opposite. So we're looking at opposite and hypotenuse. Opposite and hypotenuse is right here, which is sine. So I'm going to go the sine of 60 equals my opposite, which is x, over my hypotenuse, which is 12. Sine of 60 from earlier in the lesson is one that you're supposed to have memorized, so instead of writing sine of 60, you'll write what it is, which is square root of 3 over 2, still equals to x over 12. Now you need to get x by itself. So multiply both sides by 12, or you could just go ahead and cross multiply, which is what we did here. Then to get x totally by itself, divide by 2, and you get x to be 6 root 3. Looking at this one here, we have another triangle, another 60-degree angle. We are looking for our opposite, and we're given our adjacent. So opposite and adjacent would be our tangent. So I'm going to go tangent of my 60-degree angle. And then I'm going to put down the opposite, which is my x, over my adjacent, which is my 5. Tangent of 60 is also another one you're supposed to have memorized, which is just root 3. Still equal to x over my 5. Then I got to get x by itself by multiplying both sides by 5. A little bit of vocabulary here, and if you don't recognize this place, this is Split Rock Lighthouse from the North Shore of Lake Superior. Now, if you're up at the lighthouse and you're looking down at a kayaker, you're going to be looking down in an angle of depression. Angle of depression is how many degrees you're looking down from the horizontal going straight out from the lighthouse. However, if you're the kayaker and you're looking up at the lighthouse, your angle of elevation would be right here in green, which is how far above in degrees the horizontal you're looking. So keep that in mind when you're doing some of your homework. We have one more problem to look at here. We have a ski run, with an angle of elevation of 15.7 degrees with a vertical drop of 1800. So basically you want to go ahead and draw yourself a right triangle to model the situation. So draw yourself a right triangle. You know your angle going above the horizontal is 15.7 because it says angle of elevation. Angle of elevation, angle of depression always go from the horizontal. A vertical drop. Vertical means up and down, so you're going up and down 1800 feet. So that's over here. Now we want to estimate the run, which would be the length of our hypotenuse here, because that's the side you're skiing down. That's the run of the ski slope. So as we look here, we have our angle, we have our opposite side, we have our hypotenuse, and then you want to use Sohcahtoa. All opposite and hypotenuse is sine. So you'll go the sine of your angle equals your opposite side over your hypotenuse. Multiply both sides by h to get h out of the bottom. And then we want to get our calculator ready for them. We want to get h by itself, so you got to divide both sides by the sine of 15.7. So this is our calculator ready form. If your calculator's in the degree mode, you can just type this in as you see it, 1800 divided by the sine of 15.7. And since we were dealing with units here, we want to include our units, and so we'll put feet.